And what is going on, everybody? And today I'm going to present the 4-part special Crimson Dawn in one episode. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this video with everybody you know. Help the channel grow. Thanks! The story begins in 1943, in a grand study with several large bookcases and windows. We see a scientist dressed in a three-piece suit listening to some Wagner on the radio when a German soldier enters and salutes. Doctor, your guest has arrived. Obertaub doesn't turn around, but acknowledges this. Show him in. A tall, gaunt man, dressed in a cloak with fur-lined collar, enters. He doesn't say anything, but watches as Obertaub motions the movement of a conductor's baton. Wonderful, isn't it? The ring cycle. Truly a masterpiece that celebrates the epic of the Aryan race. Taking one through a journey not merely through plot and character, but emotion as well. He turns around. Truly a work only a German could compose, with its precision, complexity, and yet hints of vulnerability. He turns off the radio and walks over and greets his guest. Obertaub, you have summoned me here not to discuss trivial matters. What do you want? Obertaub is shocked. Trivial. He then lowers his teacup. Very well, Count. As you know, the war has at this point gone well for us. We rejected the British from Greece. We were close to capturing Moscow. The Japanese were ready to force the Americans to sue for peace. The vampire snarls. But there have been a few setbacks. The Americans and the British have now taken hold of North Africa, sending Rommel packing, and have the intent to invade Italy. And now the Russians are beginning to push us back with some difficulty. Again, trivial matters meant only for humans. Human? Well, Count, I will not argue with that. Humanity is relative after all. But consider this. You and your kind are human as well, however you wish to deny it. Your anatomy and physiology are still the same. But that is neither here nor there. And you are just as susceptible to the curse of mortality as the rest of us. As the vampire glares at this remark, the doctor presents him with a document, which he cautiously glances at. The Führer has authorized me to propose a pact between the Reich and your coven. An alliance. And why should we help you? If the reports are true, your precious Reich will capitulate in a matter of months. Oh, Count. You too are a German. He looks at the papers on his desk and holds up a sheet. Graf Melchior. You were a decorated hero of the Holy Roman Empire, and you served your emperor quite enthusiastically against the Swedes at Nordlingen. Dear me, what a list. Breitenfeld, Zusmarshausen, Jankov, Rocroi, all the way to Ulm and Leipzig. So, Count, I don't doubt that there is still a twinge of patriotism within you even into the present day. Again, Germany is beset on all sides, and you as a German national must answer the call. What say you? The vampiric Count looks away. Well, if the past won't persuade you, then perhaps the present will. After all, how often do we permit your kind to feed on the prisoners we have locked away in those labor camps? We built special facilities just to accommodate your kind's table manners. He looks up with a slight snarl. We will consider the matter. Back in the present, we are at Lee's apartment following the events of Lee and the Dust Bunnies. Luca and JJ walk outside to the parking lot. So, do you think it was a good idea to tell him he was possessed by, Dust Bunnies? Well, king of the Dust Bunnies. Whatever. All things considered, I think he took that quite well. Look, if we've learned anything, it's that Lee Suchek will never accept that he's been mentally taken over by a life form that he scrapes off the soles of his sneakers. Anyway, we did some good. We defeated the Arachnid Empress. By the way, did she ever say what her plans were? No. Alright, well, I'll see you in a few days. Alright, see you, JJ. As JJ leaves, Luca looks around and pulls out his pipe and is about to light it when he hears a voice. You really shouldn't smoke. It can do great damage to your system. He turns around to see a beautiful woman with dark hair and a pale complexion standing at the entrance of the breezeway. He finishes lighting his pipe and blows a puff of smoke. That hasn't stopped me yet. I see. A stubborn ox. You are the Bushwackers. Well, one of them. We come in sets of 3. Nadja smiles at this quip and she steps forward. Bushwacker, I need your help. Oui? My people are in danger. Very recently, we had received word that an old associate of ours has come after us, and he is a man of many resources. He's been making numerous threats, and I believe he will follow through with extreme prejudice. This is a person one does not take lightly. Luca takes a puff from his pipe. Well, Miss Nadja. Thanks. Miss Nadja, we would love to help, we would, but we're just beat from the day. See, my friend had been possessed by the king of the Dust Bunnies, and we had to fight these giant spiders that may or may not want to take over the world. I don't know, the details are still fuzzy on that. Huh. What? Well, now that I've said that out loud, it actually sounds pretty stupid. Nadja looks crestfallen. I see. So you won't help us? Oh, I never said we wouldn't, being all old school. But we would like the knight to just recover from today's adventure. Anyway, do you have any intel on the person you guys are running from? Nadja reaches into the folds of her dress and produces a floppy disk. Lucas stares incredulously at her, and then the disk. Right. Do you have any other device like from, say, the past 2 years? Anything saved on the cloud, for example? Maybe a flash drive? I haven't seen this since I lost the last of my baby teeth. No, sorry. Luca again looks at the disc. Right. Well, thank you. We'll take a gander at this and we'll, let you know. Excellent. Thank you. As she walks away, Luca stops her. Hang on a sec. How do I get a hold of you? Nadja turns around. I will return in 2 days for your answer. Be here then. Then suddenly she vanishes into the darkness. Luca looks at the disc again and continues to smoke his pipe in the breezeway. The next day, Luca is talking to Lee about his encounter from the night before. And that's it. She gave me this here and when I asked her for intel. Lee holds up the floppy disk and examines it.
Wow, I haven't seen this since I lost the last of my baby teeth.
Holy shit, that's what I said to her. It's kind of weird that she would just have that on hand, you know? And just hand it to you ready to go. Yeah. Pretty freaky.
Well, whatever's on this thing, we won't be able to access it until we get an adapter or something. Hang on a sec.
He pulls out a floppy disk reader and plugs into the computer. You seriously have that?
Well, my grand got it for me. Thought I could use it for my school papers. You got the thing?
Luca hands him the disk and he inputs it in, and they wait for a second before the device is ready. Lee plays the file and they see some grainy footage. They see a giant figure strapped to a table and his skull is open. We see a man wearing a containment suit wriggle something out of the figure's skull and eventually extracts the brain. It then places it in a cylindrical container and then transports it into a robot. As he locks the seal, the eyes glow and it turns towards the camera before screeching.
What the actual hell?
Ugh. Even I'm disturbed by this. What was that all about?
I dunno, but if this is for real, then your lady friend really is into some deep shit.
You mean someone's kidnapping her friends and doing that? I guess. But hang on. That footage looks to be over 60 years old. How could they have had this kind of technology back then? Deep state, man. Deep state.
Or some secret organization. Maybe the Illuminati is building an army of robot enforcers to complete their domination?
I thought they were at war with each other.
What?
Yeah. The lizard Illuminati is at odds with the wizards, and it's really, really messed up.
Where are you even reading this stuff?
Guys, can we focus here? This lady's supposed to be back in 2 days for her answer. Are we taking up the case?
Well, I don't know where to even start. This footage, apart from it being old, could have come from anywhere. For all we know, this lady's friends are enemies of the state.
And their punishment is to have their brains ripped out and placed into robotic suits for all of eternity. Maybe it's a military project from way back in the day, you know, like during the Cold War.
I doubt it's still around. If it's one of those Cold War projects headed by the CIA, it'll probably have been shelved by now.
How do you know that? You don't think MK Ultra still isn't rattling around somewhere in Langley?
Well, whatever it is, it's pretty old. I mean, it really can't be around still.
It must be if it's being brought to our attention now. He does have a point.
Alright. Let's assume this brain-ripping project that's funded by the military is still active in the 21st century. Let's assume that we all agree to look into it, as suicidal as that sounds. How are we going to get a hold of this lady? She didn't leave you a number or anything.
All she said was she'd be back in 2 days. Like here? Well, I mean, she appeared in the breezeway the first time around.
Great. I moved into a gated community, and somehow the crazies still know how to find me.
Well, us, the 3 of us.
And that makes me feel any better?
Doesn't it?
No.
Well, in any case, how's she gonna find us? All the apartment units here look the same, and there's nothing inconspicuous about Bushwackers headquarters. Gentlemen. Everyone turns around, shocked, to see Nadja standing there. Lee jumps up.
Okay, seriously, you two? Which one of you forgot to lock the front door? I promise now, I won't kick your ass. Right now. Maybe later.
Neither of us. You locked it.
What? Don't talk shit.
No, I remember. After I came in, you locked the door and then said, "Right, that's all of us here." So that means you're gonna have to kick your own ass.
I see.
Gentlemen, please. If we're done with this sophomoric banter, we must get down to the business. You reviewed the footage. Yes, we did, but it looks really, really old. It has been an ongoing experiment for decades now, Bushwackers. How old are we talking here? An experiment fomented by the Nazis in a desperate bid to win the war at any expense. The kind which posterity should never know. The one that has plagued my people to near extinction.
I'm sorry, people? I don't mean to be rude, but is this like an ethnic cleansing or something?
In a manner of speaking, yes. She turns around and reveals her fangs. It cuts back to 1943, where we see the vampire Count enter Obertaub's study. The doctor is sitting behind his desk when the vampire slams his hands, shaking with rage. You swine! Obertaub doesn't turn around, but hums a melody from Mozart to himself. When I told you that we would assist, it would be on a provisional basis. But you have presumed to walk into our abode with your stormtroopers and take away our people for some sick, devilish fantasy? Fantasy? He turns around. My dear Graf, it is nothing but a reality. It is in fact hard science plucked from the depths of my mind. All for the glory of the fatherland. He stands up as he says this. A cold, hard fact that is dictated by the present circumstances of which I spoke but a few days earlier. Then I shall be obliged to pluck your head for this intransigence. As he moves to grab Obertaub, the doctor displays a silver cross, which causes the vampire to recoil on the floor. My dear Graf, you of all people, and you are still people, regardless of your superstitious pretenses, or to understand that the lukewarm never achieve anything in life, and your coven is simply too placid to move even a finger without consulting their cards or divining from the stars. You may not realize this, but the nature of the German is to be precise and decisive. How else did Arminius deliver such a humiliating blow on Varus? How else did Charles defeat Francis at Pavia? He kneels down as the Count gasps for air. Amazing. It is like watching a fish out of water. But one must wonder if this is merely an act or if truly you breathe. I'm saying it for myself, but can still hardly fathom it. Though undead, you still fall on basic reflexes as gasping. He straightens up as three soldiers enter, carrying silver armbands. They place one on the Count, and he groans in pain as they lift him up. The good Count is concerned about his people, gentlemen. Please oblige him so he may see how the German war machine truly works. Jawohl! The Count is led down a flight of stairs and dragged into a giant laboratory. To his horror, he sees vampires being strapped to tables and doctors drilling into their skulls as they scream in pain. He looks around to see a few in a cage. He struggles, but with the silver manacles, can do little but speak. Greta! Greta! One of the vampires in the cage leaps out and tries to reach him. Count! Thank goodness you're alive! Greta, what are they doing to you? Before she can say anything, the Count is struck from behind and he falls to the table. He turns to see a brain placed into a mechanical gargoyle suit. As he watches, a doctor walks over with a drill. Willkommen, Count. Today you will be an integral part of the Wehrmacht. You will achieve greater glories than before. I curse you, swine! He struggles but learns their silver line. The doctor looks at his subordinates. No anesthesia on this one. He is the leader of the coven. Make the others watch. The vampire's eyes widen as the drill gets closer to him. The Bushwackers, having just learned that their mysterious client, Nadja Solanka, is a vampire, are a bit stunned. But before they can process this revelation in full, Nadja tries to bring their attention back to the matter at hand.
Oh, wow. This took a weird turn. I can hardly believe it. And I'm the one that's seeing this.
Right, because dust bunnies possessing people is just prosaic.
I don't know what that means. Sorry, Miss...
Nadja. Nadja Solanka.
Right, Miss Solanka. Can you provide more details on the footage? There really isn't much to go on.
What you saw, gentlemen, was footage from 1973 showing a brain transplant. During the war, the Nazis made a pact with my kind to defeat the Allies, but when we were less than forthcoming in assistance, they took matters into their own hands and began shipping hundreds of us to Germany to implant brains into mechanical monsters. The idea was if they could harness the feral power of vampires into mechanical suits, they would provide unstoppable. But many who saw where they became destroyed themselves rather than being used. So the Nazis built a control device. Nadja nods. When the war ended, many of the German scientists involved fled to Argentina. The leader of this grisly experiment, Isaac Obertaub, continued with his unholy machinations. Unholy? He had vampires deliberately infect people so they could create a steady supply of victims. However, by the 1970s, he'd become terminally ill and the project ostensibly halted. We thought that was the end, as he was the one who spearheaded and developed this enterprise with vigor.
So, what? Are we chasing phantoms?
Not quite. 2 years ago, several prominent coven leaders from throughout the world began vanishing. At first, we attributed this to vampire hunters and spiritual warriors, men of the church and mercenaries. But as the rates of disappearances increased, we began looking into the matter and learned that this vile experiment had been restarted. Who by? Some suspect Obertaub, but given his lifespan, he ought to be dead by now. Others suspect it is one of his followers, preparing for some forthcoming conflict and needs foot soldiers. An army of robotic vampires. Weird.
It's not as far-fetched as you'd think, especially given a lot of countries are now looking for that edge.
Wow. Scary. Oi! What do you believe? Obertaub is a man of reserve and will, Bushwacker. If he could easily transplant others' brains into this metal monsters, who's to say he hasn't done it to himself?
Right. So we're looking for a brain in a jar with a giant swastika on the side.
Nadja gives him an incredulous look. Where exactly do we start? The last report of a disappearance was somewhere in New Orleans from the House of Thelema, just a week ago. I recommend checking there first. You may find a clue to lead you in the right direction.
Anyone in particular? Like a name?
Nadja hands him a piece of paper, which Lee examines. The victim was Remy Lavigne, one of the counsels for the Coven. He had been part of the task force investigating the project when Obertal was alive, but couldn't find the man apart from a few associates. Turned? Unlikely. In any case, he was the closest to have any actual intel, so it would stand to reason that he would be the one they'd kidnap.
Whoever they are.
Lee, Luca, and JJ exchange looks. We'll do our best. Nadja grabs his hand. Please. We don't have much time. We'll do what we can. As she leaves, Lee looks over at Luca.
What the hell was that?
What?
That moment. Care to share with us?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Alright. Shall I take a gander that you accepted this ludicrous case because maybe you have the hots for her?
What? No. Don't be ridiculous.
Did she ever mention anything about vampires' brains being transplanted into metal machines before tonight?
Well... no.
Ha! Point proven! You so want her! It's all over your face!
Look, now that we have taken on the case, can we focus on where to begin our line of inquiry?
Alright, lover boy.
He looks at the sheet.
She said one of them was investigating this when he vanished, right? I mean, if you're gonna eliminate anyone, might as well be the guy who's literally got his claws into your business.
She did mention New Orleans in the Temple of Thelema. Alright, so we start there and... What now?
Do you see the way he looked at her when she touched him? She's got icy cold hands, but the way he was looking back at her, you'd have thought otherwise.
Alright, you really gotta let that go, man.
Sorry. It's just that you don't often see people fall head over heels for vampires. You know?
It cuts to a street in New Orleans. It's oddly quiet with barely a noise, save for the occasional barking of a dog in the distance. They walk into an alleyway and find the address and enter the building. They see it is tidily made as Lee walks over to the desk and looks for any clues. This guy that Nadja mentioned, Remy, she said he'd been keeping tabs on Obertaub's work for years and years.
Yeah, and he hasn't left much in terms of his findings.
Well, he probably digitized it.
Do you know how long vampires live? He's probably got the papers in one of those manila folders with the paper clips and shit. Being old school, it'd be like a CIA dossier from the 50s. I mean, wouldn't be shocked if you still had those large computers you see from the Apollo missions.
Maybe it was.
True.
JJ walks over to the portrait. They can see the figure is a severe-looking man dressed in an Edwardian outfit. The others look at the portrait.
He sure is charming.
JJ walks over and begins to finger the picture frame. Lee stares at him.
What are you doing?
Well, it's one of the oldest tropes in film and TV. The portrait's hiding a safe behind it.
Really? Maybe he's hidden it somewhere else.
The portrait falls to the ground and they see, to Lee's bemusement, a safe. JJ smiles as he points. Told ya.
God, it's like people just don't learn. Great. How do we open it?
As if on cue, the safe door opens, and they peer inside to see it's been emptied. Wow. Another trope come to fulfillment.
So, where do we go from here?
Hey, Fellas? Look. They see a trail behind a door. They follow into another alleyway where it stops. They exchange nervous glances. As they do so, they hear a screech and look up to see a metallic gargoyle with a green dome atop its head. The creature spreads its wings and dives into the alley, intending to attack them. At the last second, the trio get out of the way and it crashes into the ground, leaving a crater. They peer down the manhole. Alright guys, after it, that's our lead. As they scrum down the manhole, Lee remains standing there, looking around.
Jeez, guys, I don't know. I mean, it's the sewer. It's dark, it smells of, well, you know what it smells like, Luca. It mainly came from you.
When he gets no response, he stands there for a few more seconds.
Shit.
It cuts to the sewer where Luca and JJ, wearing face masks, slosh around the muck and mire when they get to a T-juncture. Lee joins them and looks down, making a face. He is also annoyed to see he is the only one wearing shorts while the others are wearing trousers.
Dude, I think I'm gonna puke.
Hey, man. It reeks down here. You better put on your mask.
I don't have one.
Oh.
Oh? Is that all you're gonna say? Oh?
Didn't you bring a mask with you when we left for New Orleans?
No, Luca, I didn't. I thought we'd be pursuing people across Bourbon Street, ride boats, or take a fan boat over the marshes. But I never thought I'd be knee-deep in shit in the bowels of the city.
Whoa. That is poor planning, dude. Seriously. Alright, you want to take the left and I'll do the right? Yep. As they split, Lee looks around, holding his hands over his nose and mouth. He lifts his left leg to see covered in human effluence and other stuff.
God almighty, I'm gonna have to burn these now. And I love these sneakers. Had them since junior year of high school.
Lucas slowly wades through the muck when he hears a low roar. He stops and looks up. He then hears sloshing, growing closer and closer, and he turns to see Lee behind him.
Wow. This tunnel goes on for miles.
Quiet! I hear something. As they listen, there's another low growl. Luca rushes ahead as Lee sighs and follows suit. Lee tries to follow, but Cece is stuck. As he attempts to lift a foot out, he wobbles and falls backward into the river of effluence. He emerges a few seconds later, now covered in the treasures of the sewer. They eventually find themselves in an abandoned riverbed as dawn breaks. They walk over to see JJ, who greets them. It's been crouched there for 10 minutes. Didn't even move or anything. It's like it didn't know or cared. I was just standing there. They walk over to the hunched over gargoyle. It looks up and they see a brain inside the glowing green dome. Remy Lavinia? The creature lowers its head. It sees its reflection in the puddle and then screeches again as if enraged at what it's become against its will. It then proceeds to smash its head against a concrete block. The Bushwackers do nothing, but watch as the dome finally cracks, exposing the brain. The creature staggers up and begins walking towards the sunlight, and smoke emanates from the now destroyed dome. The brain bursts into flames, and after giving one last scream, the mechanical monster falls over. They hear sloshing and turn to see Lee standing there, dripping in the glory of the underworld. What happened to you?
I'll give you 3 guesses, and none of them are wrong.
He lifts his leg up.
I could literally do shit. What's going on here?
Well, we found the kidnapping victim Nadja was talking about, but he took matters into his own hands.
Great. So, what now?
It cuts back to Lee's apartment where the mechanical vampire is laid out on Lee's dining room table. Luca and JJ are looking over it with a disgruntled Lee glaring at them.
Any other place. Any other place would do just fine. Why is it always my apartment that's gotta be used for this?
The other two aren't listening. Lee, frustrated, walks up to the bathroom, slamming the door in frustration. What's that? Luca, using tweezers, pulls out a rubber strip from the casing. That, JJ, would be human flesh. Does she mean vampire? Well, vampires are technically human. Oh, I see, right. From closer look at the hydraulic system, it appears to be a hybrid of mechanical and organic. See, the vampire still feeds on blood, but this thing here extracts the protein from the blood, cycles it through the filter, and uses it to power the organic bits. You mean the brain? Well, that's really the only organic bit in this entire machine. But from what I've seen, this is a crude operation. How so? They look up to see Nod just standing there. If I had to guess, whoever did this job was either careless or just plain sadistic. Instead of carefully extracting the brain, they appear to have sawn through the skull, taking bits of flesh and bone with it, stuck it in the case, and... well... I see. And it appears the hydraulic system itself was faulty. It wasn't operating at full capacity. So the vampire wasn't able to extract sufficient nutrients from the blood. Correct. He was in a frenzied state, poor devil. He was starving and couldn't think straight. He reaches into the machine and pulls out a device clotted in blood. Not to mention that the blood leaked out from the tubes and just got into the circuitry. No wonder it went plumb loco. Nigel walks over and examines the machine. How did he die? He smashed its head into a concrete block and walked into the sun, where its brain went poof. Yeah, hardware malfunction. That may not be the only reason why it went mad. I think he was intentionally doing it, as if to avoid any further fate for whatever it was crafted to be. By its creator or master. Not just solemnly nods. And the question I have is, what does it all mean? It means someone has indeed revived Obertab's experiments, and all for nefarious but age-old purpose. War. Yeah. It also confirms another thing. There's a clientele in need of this monstrosity. Or a bunch of clientele. Clienteles? Right. Right. He turns to Najo. But why you lot? Surely they could have gone with anyone else. The vampire is the ultimate predator, capable of great strength, stealth, and speed, but still limited in some ways. By merging it with cybernetic implants, they hope to create a very deadly weapon that, in the wrong hands, could wreak havoc on the world. They? Who's they? As if on cue, the machine sits up, its eyes glowing red. It grabs Naja by the throat, and she struggles to break free. Luca tries to wrench her free, but the robot opens its maw. We have her... As they struggle, Lee emerges from the bathroom.
Ooh. Well, 20 minutes of showering is not going to get the stench of shit. I might have to try bathing in one of those geothermal pits or something. What the hell's going on here?
There's a beep, and it cuts to the apartment where we see a giant explosion. As the smoke clears, we see Luca and JJ crouched behind a ruined couch and Lee lying on the table. Slowly, everyone gets up and Lee staggers forward. He looks around.
What the hell?
He turns to the others.
Seriously? Guys?
Everyone okay? I think so.
Dude! Look at this place! It's
Blown to smithereens?
funny, JJ. Oh, you've missed your calling in life.
He kicks a broken armchair in frustration.
You know, with all this happening, I might as well buy a house.
I mean, you can do that, but it'll probably just get blown up also. As Lee scowls, Luca looks around. Guys? Where's Nadja? JJ and Lee check everywhere but don't see anything. They walk over to the gaping hole in the wall made by the explosion and stare up at the night sky. In the explosion in Lee's apartment, JJ is helping Lee pick through his valuables while Lee's on the phone with his insurance company.
I'm sorry, you don't cover explosions? It was random, and in no way did I know that the pipes would explode. It was a faulty natural gas explosion.
Pipes? Lee covers the phone.
Yeah, everyone knows exploding robots are covered under a renter's policy.
Oh, right.
Yes, I'm still here. Make a list of all the valuables destroyed?
He looks at the blackened mess that was formerly his apartment.
Yeah, I could do that. No problemo. Thank you. Good afternoon to you too.
As he hangs up, he sees JJ staring at him.
The customer service center is in Malaysia.
I see. Luca runs in. Guys, I can't find Nadja.
Really? The explosion we just experienced isn't registering with you?
What?
No. I've had enough of this charade. Let's take stock here. Luca here meets a random lady one night in my breezeway who asked him for his help, refusing to divulge any information on the job. This jackass readily accepts the job, not knowing said woman is a blood-sucking vampire who just as well eat him like a Twinkie, and then she gives us this cockamamie story about Nazis turning vampires into robots or whatever, sends us to New Orleans, where we're knee-deep in literal shit, bring back a robot that looks like a Comic-Con costume, and it goes off and blows half of my apartment away, nearly killing us in the process. Now, I'm literally left with nothing, and you're concerned about a woman who probably set this entire thing up in the first place just to F with us?
No, and yes, and no again. Lee stares in amazement at the casual response when JJ chirps up. When you mentioned Nadja eating Luca like a Twinkie, was that like a racial thing? Lee responds by chucking his phone at JJ. As Lee fumes, Luca hears his phone buzz and answers. Hello? Are you the Bushwackers? Yes, who's this? We have your friend. What? Where is she? Is she alright? You will desist your investigations at once. You will no longer pursue this line of inquiry. Or what? The line goes dead. Luca turns around to face Lee and JJ. What's up? They have Nadja.
Who's they?
I don't know. The Nazis? The same people who built that thing. The thing that just exploded.
Wonderful.
Is there a number on the caller ID? No, it was an anonymous call. I don't know who it was. And yet they managed to get your number. Well, we do put on the ad, so it wasn't hard to figure out. True.
You know, if my apartment hadn't been blown to God knows what, I would have used my computer to say, triangulate the call, assuming my apartment was still intact. Just saying. You know?
But we gotta find her.
God damn it, Luca. You really owe me a new apartment.
In 1943, the original Dr. Obertaub walks over to a robotic vampire strapped to the table. He taps on the glass dome in a half-mocking manner. Count Melchior, can you hear me? The robotic vampire slowly comes to and sees Obertaub. It screeches and struggles against its restraints. The soldiers aim their guns at it, but Obertaub motions them to lower their guns. No, you fools. Those will have no effect on it. Its armor is from the new Panzer tanks, impervious to small arms fire and grenades. A true machine of war, with the mind of a killer at the wheels. He looks over at the former Count Melchior. And he is under my thrall. Aren't you, Count? The vampire merely hisses. Obertaub turns to see the other vampires watching in horror at what's become of their former leader. Behold, my children, spawn from German industry and folklore. Fear not. You will retain your immortality, but you will fly under both sun and moon. The Luftwaffe will fly with its new allies to destroy London, New York, and Moscow. He turns to gaze at the Count. What can stop us now? Back in the present, the Bushwackers have looked into several possible leads. A few days later, our heroes find themselves at an abandoned military base in New Jersey. As they go through the gate, they look at the dilapidated buildings. They enter one of the hangars and notice a workstation. As Lee accesses it, the hangar lights up and the floors open up to reveal an elevator. They soon find themselves ascending into an underground base where everything appears futuristic and sleek. As they explore the lab, Luca sees a glowing pod. As he draws near, he sees, to his horror, that there's a brain inside of it, with cables attached to the brainstem. Lee presently joins him, but then nudges him, and they see rows of glowing jars with brains in there. What do you think they do with the bodies? Lee doesn't answer, but continues forward, walking past the brains. He gets the feeling that some of them are aware of his presence and are turning in his direction as he tries his best to ignore this possibility. Meanwhile, JJ walks over to a railing and looks down to see a mass of cybernetic suits. Presently, Lee and Luca join him.
What the hell have we stumbled onto?
The future. They turn to see a tall man with the classical features of an Aryan walk towards them, flanked by two armed guards. Well, this is a fine facility you have here. And the follow-through is just extraordinary.
Luca, stop complimenting him. He's a Nazi. You're a Nazi, right?
No, Mr. Suchek, I am not. Gentlemen, this is not a grand occasion. The great Bushwackers are here to stop us. They begin to laugh contemptuously at this remark. Dr. Obertaub, I presume? Well, not the original. I'm his great-grandson, continuing his legacy. All this, gentlemen, is a summation of a man who worked hard to harness the supernatural and bring it within the control of the mundane. The immortal subjected to the will of the mortal for his own purpose. You mean war? You disapprove? Well, that's all fine and Jim dandy, but why restart the project? Didn't this end after World War II? Obertaub turns around. The world has changed since then, Bushwackers. Really? Because I think there's more to this than just profit. Come on, Obertaub, what's this really all about? Profit's just a coincidence, not the cause. Obertaub's face flinches as he draws his breath. He walks over to a pot and lovingly strokes it. The Bushwackers exchange quizzical looks. I fell in love with a woman once. She was the one I would have given anything for, and at one time I did. To me, she could do no wrong, even when she did wrong. And how she did wrong. She lied, stole, cheated, and cuckolded me, but I bore it with the patience of a devoted husband. You see, I took my vows seriously. And still do. He holds up his ring finger. I faced ridicule from all sides, people who said I was blind. And I was blind, but I willed it. How could I ever turn in anger to someone I pledged myself to? And in spite of her flaws, she loved me, and I knew she cared, even amidst the litany of sins. He then winces in pain and taps the glass. But then it all changed. As if a sudden wave swept away all that love. She met a man at a nightclub, and they began a liaison. I knew at once this man was different from the others. I tried to protect her, but she defied me. It was as if she was under a spell or something. She was compelled towards him. He wanted her. He hungered for her. And she was happy to oblige. He fed on her and turned her into one of them. And her wantonness just increased by the day, but this was the final humiliation. She screamed in pain as she turned from this beautiful creature into something so foul and dark. I dug into my great-grandfather's notes and finally decided to embrace my legacy. He dramatically gestures to the pods. I subdued her, at nearly the cost of my own life, and placed her in a prototype. I was delighted at what I had done, but it sickened me to my core all at once. And I could tell she despised the two states she was in now, both vampire and cyborg. But even more, I knew she now despised me for having done this to her. And I loved her enough to grant her clemency. I didn't tint the dome and exposed her to sunlight. How she died! I can still hear her to this day. And the screams are modified so they don't replicate that scream. The vampire robot we encountered in New Orleans. The one and the same who turned my beloved Sonia into a monster. It took me years to find this creature. Yet fate would hand him to me, as he was the one investigating my creatures and he knew it was me. He too missed my Sonia and wanted to know what became of her. Said he could train her to quell the bloodlust. As if I was insufficient. I laughed at him and did what I had dreamt of all those years. And when I did, I subjected him to the horrors of my grandfather's experiments. You intentionally botched the operation. Yes, and he became frenzied, unable to be satisfied from feeding, unable to think straight, until a moment of clarity when he saw what he finally was. What he became. He knew that his precious Sonia had met the same fate as before.
What? You could read their thoughts? You have a machine that can track their brain patterns and...
He sees a machine matching the description.
Holy shit. Why do we even bother?
But gentlemen, you must understand, I am no more different than you. We both fight monsters and we both sacrifice our joys for the greater good.
And you'll probably suggest we form a partnership or something.
I mean, if you think about it, he actually has a pretty novel yet sustainable business model.
What? Kidnapping vampires? And turning them into killing machines? Have you ever seen RoboCop 2?
There are no vampires in that movie.
No, idiot. But what he's doing is, in principle, no different from OCP in the movie.
Huh. You're gonna have to explain it to me a little more clearly.
Damn it. Taking dangerous people and turning them into cyborgs? Kane was a crazy drug dealer, and then they put his nuke-riddled brain into that mecha? Ringing any bells yet?
There are two thuds, and the two turn to see two enormous metallic gargoyles flanking Obertau. The doctor smiles. Gentlemen, would you like to meet my latest recruits? Oh, Mr. Suwon, I believe one of them you already know. One of the robot vampires screeches and begins to advance. Nacha? Nacha, is that you? The robot stops for a second and lowers its head. Before Luca can react, the machine spreads its wings and flies upward. Do you think she's remembering me?
Highly unlikely.
As he says this, the vampire dive bombs and the three get out of the way, but the floor gives way and they all fall into the opening. As they scurry away, they hear gunfire ring above and they take cover behind several empty suits.
Well, this is going well.
If we can reprogram Naja, maybe she can help us.
Somehow I doubt that's even an option.
We have to try. Luca runs off to the main lab, where he sees a few empty tanks with liquid oozing out. Before he can do anything, one of the robot vampires lands in front of him, screeching. He backs away, and the tip of the creature's iron wings scrape against the floor, creating sparks. He sees smoke emanate from the goo and rolls out of the way as the creature slams its fist into one of the consoles. Obertop sees this and yells at the creature. Be careful, you cretin! You'll end up destroying my lab! Luca gets an idea and begins hurling objects at the creature to get its attention. The monster turns around and drags its wings, creating more sparks. Soon a fire erupts and Obertop screams for his underlings to put the fire out as the creature prepares to punch. As it does so, Luca ducks, causing the robot vampire to punch Obertop through a metal wall. One of the vampires scurries over, grabbing Obertop and pointing at Luca before screeching. Luca jumps down the hole and crawls next to Lee. Oh, I think that's done it.
Really? That was your grand plan? To set this place ablaze?
Well, that and now their big chief's probably gonna be concussed.
Probably. I'd be surprised if he could even tie his shoelaces.
Guys! They scurry over to see JJ has pried open the vent. Lee nervously eyes the vent before looking up to see robot vampires surrounding the hole and screeching.
You got me sold.
They leap into the vent as the vampires land and begin tearing the wall with fury. As the Bushwackers slide down, they see one of the robotic vampires in pursuit, but it suddenly stops. It looks around, screeching as it realizes it's too big and is now stuck. Presently, they land in a sewer. Lee flies out of the vent and lands into the muck, where he rises out, again covered in the ooze.
God almighty! Not this again! This cannot keep happening!
They hear the screeches from the vents along with tearing and gnawing noises. They slosh through the sewer.
Alright. If we keep going this way, then we should make it to... What's the nearest town? Hoboken?
I think so. JJ? They turn to see JJ has vanished.
The hell? Wasn't he just there?
I think so. Come on. I bet there was a junction he took the other way.
We know there was no juncture, dude.
You know you're getting shit on me, right?
I know.
As Luca scowls, the lights flicker, and Lee sees that Luca's vanished. Lee's eyes widen as he backs away.
Oh no! Not this! Man, not today!
As he backs away, we see a tall figure behind him. Lee notices a presence and turns around, and the cloak wraps around him and it fades to black with Lee screaming. Back in 1943, we see an American patrol in southern Italy moving very quietly. As they move, we see their movements from a predator's perspective. As the patrol moves, they stop after hearing some rustling. After a few seconds, they continue forward. It then cuts to the office where we see Dr. Obertaub observing this through a screen. He presses a button and speaks into the microphone. Now, count. The patrol is moving quietly along when there's a screech. Before they can react, there's a scream as one of the soldiers vanishes, followed by another. They open fire, but do not hit anything. Suddenly, the lieutenant is all by himself as he looks around. He turns to see the robotic vampire before him, its jaws dripping with blood. The lieutenant opens fire, but the vampire grabs his arms and breaks them and then closes in for the kill. Obertaub watches with satisfaction. Count. You may be a vampire, but truly you are a patriot, a son of the Reich. We have many, many wars for you to fight, all against the enemies of the Aryan race. We see the Count standing over its kill, screeching, its wings extended as the dawn rises. As he screeches, we see more vampires being strapped to slabs, with doctors preparing to drill into their skulls to extract their brains. We see a shot of Greta, resigned to her fate after seeing what happened to the Count. She can only look away as the drill draws closer to her, preparing to turn her into another monstrosity. Back in the present, Lee's eyes flicker open, and he sits up and he sees he's now cleaned up and in freshly washed clothes. He turns to see JJ and Luca coming too. Ugh, my head. Where are we? Lee looks around to see they're in a plush yet old chamber.
I don't know, but wherever we are, it looks like it was built for a king.
Is it? Too Rococo then? Or Baroque? No, not Baroque. It's lacking pomposity. And if you say so. Geez, Luca, if you're gonna take us to a safe house, I could do without the knocking out. It wasn't me. It wasn't? No, I was taken after you.
It's true. We were both wondering where you got to before Baldy here did a disappearing act right before my very eyes.
Okay, so who brought us here? We did. They turn to see 5 tall and gaunt figures dressed in velvet robes standing there.
I'm getting real sick of sudden surprise appearances.
Oh, well, thank you for your help, Mr. Benedetto Carlotti. I am the leader of the Vampiric Congress of North America. Okay. You will excuse the intrusion, gentlemen, but it was necessary in order to prevent panic and to carry this out with expedience. We don't have much time. Well, that's true.
So, what's the Vampire Congress of America doing helping us 3 lowlives?
I'm sure by now you've met with one of our associates, Nadja Solanka. Briefly. And she's reported the course of your investigations to us. We've been monitoring Obertaub for decades, and he's a threat to our kind.
So we've heard.
As such, I propose an alliance to stop this madman.
Excuse me, sir? But from what I've learned so far, isn't this a vampire problem? The way I see it, this is more of your best to clean up. No offense.
Wow, dude. And after they cleaned the literal shit off of you.
Hey man, I get that your girlfriend roped you into this, but this is beyond our scope. And if you believe what Dr. Nazi was spouting earlier, he's got it in for these guys, not us.
Gentlemen, you do realize that once Obertaub is finished eliminating our kind, he will turn on humanity. We have a common foe and a chance to stop this.
What are you talking about?
Carlotti opens the door and they follow him down the hall in the spiraling stairwell. When the project failed, he was firmly convinced that humans would be the best subjects. but he never got the chance as the Wehrmacht put an end to his experiments and focused on the V1 project. But he kidnapped humans as much as he did vampires in the years following the war. What makes you think his descendants will follow suit? Well, he tries to say something, but is clearly stumped. Well, he is the grandson of a Nazi scientist, so at this point it's all plausible. What do you have in mind? We need your help in assaulting the laboratory, destroying the specimen, disabling the suits, and ending the experiments once and for all. This must die with Obertaub. So, basically, we're going back to the lab from which we narrowly escaped. Yes.
Oh, wow. Super. This day keeps getting better and better.
So, why haven't you been able to stop, though? You're just letting this guy walk all over you. He has built these monsters with silver linings in the joints and wires, and the strength has been augmented. Even if we could overpower them with raw strength, we couldn't reach their vulnerable circuits.
Right. So you need us to touch the vulnerable parts?
Ew, Suchek!
Hey, that best describes what they're asking us here.
Quite. In the instances where we've confronted them, they've gotten the better of us.
Cool. Where do we start?
It cuts to a chamber where they gather around a blueprint of the mechanical suits. We see the vampires and the bushwhackers around a table. From what I could glean, the vampires rely on a hydraulic system that converts the protein from the blood to feed the brain, and then the blood is recycled. Yes, but they still need to acquire fresh blood. True. And it would take a tremendous amount of impact to disrupt the hydraulic system. But what about the brain case? Heavily tinted to block out sunlight. They put copious amounts of anti-reflective coating both on the inside and outside of the domes. Even the brain, once extracted from the rest of the body, is vulnerable to sunlight.
What's this?
He points to a vent at the back of the skull. That is an exhaust vent.
An exhaust vent? I thought they were vampires.
Cyborgs, technically. But the vent is to release any exhaust and... What? Luca points to the plans. Well, look where the vent leads to. It's basically going straight through the hydraulic system into the brain itself. To the ordinary eye, the process may be slow, but it's moving lightning fast, pumping all the nutrients in the brain in seconds. You know, I've got a theory.
Oh no.
Well, it's a very good theory, and I'm 88% certain it'll work.
Even at 100%, I'd be wary of your theories.
Carlotti shoots Lee a dirty look before continuing. What exactly did you have in mind? Back in 1943, Obertaub is marveling at his latest creation, which he deems the Uberkrieger, the superior robotic vampire. As the Count watches, we are taken to a mindscape where the Count is in his normal body. What have they done to me? Look at me! I'm an abomination. I've been turned into a plaything for mere mortals. Men who would not even be worth a snack, let alone attention. A once proud man now turned into a mere thing. Count! He turns to see the same woman from before standing before him. No, not Count. Not anymore. The woman kneels down. Count, you must help us. How? I can't even help myself. They have me attacking when and where they will. They do that to all of us. But you can save us. He pensively looks up. How? You are the alpha male, the leader of Obertaub's pack. He's built a master control which transmits instructions to all of the followers. He did that so if you refuse to obey, he could punish you by punishing all of us. And you want me to destroy it? Well, not necessarily. We cannot stand the sham of this existence. We would rather die than carry on being the toys of this Nazi madman. Greta, assuming I were to agree with you, what did you have in mind? Greta sadly smiles. You're not going to like it, Count, but please know that the entire coven is behind you. We will all follow you. We will all follow your lead, no matter what. In the present, the group has devised a plan. It cuts to a mausoleum with the vampires gathered. As they chatter, Carlotti looks around. Come, you mongrels. Catch the scent. Suddenly, lights appear in the tree line and there are screeches. As they dive the mausoleum, the vampires retreat into the underground vault. As the vampires begin clawing at the door, Lee and Luca leap on top of two of the monsters holding vials.
I hope for your sake this works!
They jam the vials into the vents when smoke emanates from the brain cases. They are thrown off, and the vampires screech and grab their heads before collapsing. The others, seeing this, turn and fly off. Lee and Luca walk over to see a pinkish-colored ooze emanate from the creatures' mouths. Carlotti and JJ presently join them. It worked! It worked!
I can see that!
What happened?
Well, we injected this liquid into the vents, and it basically melted their brains.
What is that liquid? Oh, holy water. We see Lee pry open one of the brain cases to reveal the blackened lump still smoking. As the vampires gather around, Carlotti looks at his compatriots. We have our secret weapon. We can now begin our counterattack. Back to World War II, we see the graphic 1944. In the distance, we see what appears to be a flock. As they draw near, it is the Coven. Obertau is on the comms. Remember, as soon as the Allies are near, you are to dive bomb their landing craft and ships. They must not make it to the beaches, do you hear me? They must perish. The Count screeches. He sees the ships below and turns to see the Germans in their bunkers, their panzer tanks moving into position and guns being trained towards the sky. The Count turns to his companions, nods, and they shift directions and dive bomb the Germans instead. As the first wave crash towards the Earth, they create explosions and craters. The German soldiers, stunned, begin opening fire. Obertau is furious. You cretin! You imbecile! You're attacking your own men! Turn back, schnell! But the Count refuses to comply. In the mindscape, we see the Coven members and Greta. The Count stands atop a stump and addresses them. My children, I am a warrior and a proud German. I am the son of the Empire and always will be. But this is no Reich, and these are not honorable men. They are louts who would skulk in the darkness, shaming the darkness for hiding such misery. We are no one's playthings. We ally ourselves with no one. We are for ourselves. Hail eternity! As the Coven cheers, it cuts back to the Coven dive bombing the pillboxes and bunkers. A few soldiers are being mauled by the robotic vampires. Obertau is fuming. Count! Count, this is your master! Obertau, you will order your pack to desist at once. When he gets no response, he produces a switch. You remember the master control, yes? I will end you and your pathetic coven if you refuse to comply. There's a gargling noise over the radio. Scheiße. Obertau swears and presses the button. It cuts to the bunker where the Count, in his body, sees the sun. As he smiles, he is slowly burned away, along with the rest of the coven, fading into dust. It cuts to the laboratory where we see Obertab in a mechanized wheelchair studying the footage. As he does so, a soldier runs up. Interesting, Groves. Very interesting. You see, when we attacked the last Coven gathering a few days ago, 2 of our sentinels went offline. I need to compensate by switching to a manual override, but nothing. He turns around. It's as if they died. Sir, the base is under attack. Is it? Send out the sentinels. We're running short of manpower and we could stock up. Meanwhile, at the entrance, the vampires are putting up resistance, killing the guards with ease. As the last guard drops dead, Carlotti turns and stops, and he sees a swarm of robot vampires launch straight towards them. Carlotti turns to see a few of his vampires carried off, while another is violently mauled. Come on, you 3. I hope you're there by now. It cuts to the main lab where one of the vents flies off and the Bushwackers emerge. As they straighten up, they look to see most of the guards are gone and proceed to the consoles, where they begin planting explosives. JJ runs to the armory where he sees the dormant machines and begins plugging vials into the vents. What are you doing? They turn to see Obertaub in his now mechanized wheelchair, crawling on arthropod-like legs. You 3. I should have known. What did those bloodsuckers promise you in return for betraying your own kind? Gold? Riches? Immortality? The 3 don't answer but bolt. Obertaub presses a button and one of the larger sentinels emerges. Go, my Leviathan. Find and destroy them. The giant machine thunders slowly. It cuts to a close-up of a bomb and it goes to 0 when suddenly the platform explodes. Obertaub screams as he falls into the abyss below and the sentinel flaps its wings and roars overhead. Luca leaps onto the back of the creature and prepares to jam the vial into the vent when he hears a voice. Luca. He looks down to see the creature staring at him. Nadja? Nadja, is that you? Yes. Well, what's left of me anyway? Please, we don't have much time. You have to end this. End this? He looks at the vial. Are you sure? I can find a way to bring you back. No. No, it's too late. Please, this one last act of kindness and love you have, do it for me. JJ scurries over to Lee, where they hear a screech as one of the vampires enters, his hands burning.
Well...
It worked. It actually worked. As he says this, a giant sentinel lands in front of him with a vial protruding from the neck. Luca dismounts, looking forlorn.
Hey, buddy! We did it! We finally put an end to this whole robot vampire mess! Luca? Buddy?
But he doesn't say anything, walking past the vampires and Lee towards the entrance. Lee and JJ look after him when a thought occurs to JJ. Where's Carlotti? We find out that Obertaub survived his fall, although his mecha wheelchair didn't. As he crawls away, coughing up blood, he hears a noise and turns around. He grunts and tries to crawl to a nearby vent when someone grabs and lifts him up. He sees it as Carlotti. Dr. Lawrence Obertaub. The scientist doesn't say anything but squirms. Carlotti cocks his head and we hear a snap and the silhouette of Carlotti holding a limp and lifeless body. Consider the matter even. Back in 1944, Obertaub is reviewing the reports when an officer walks in. He salutes half-heartedly as the officer sits down. It is over, Doctor. The project was a failure. Obertaub looks up, incredulous. A failure? Mein Gott, you are a pessimist. The general lights a cigarette and blows smoke calmly. Dr. Pessimist so often pragmatic. And it's high time to admit that this project of yours has come to nothing. The resources diverted could have built more tanks, aeroplanes, guns, and ships. He tosses a discarded cybernetic head onto the desk. And now this fantasy will be the end of the Reich. Obertop squeezes the head and turns to the general, fury on his face. Nein, General. Nein. This will never end. The general calmly puts out the cigarette and puts on his hat. I am truly sorry that you feel this way, Doctor. As he says this, soldiers rush in, guns drawn. Obertaub is astonished at the turn of events. Finally realizing defeat, he lifts his arms and lowers his head as he's led away. It cuts back to Lee's apartment, which has been miraculously restored. Lee gives a tour to a somewhat bemused JJ.
I mean, I don't actually believe it. That Carlotti guy actually said, "How can we ever pay you back?"
Uh-huh.
And I just said offhand, "Oh, if you could restore my apartment right before it got blown up by those robot vampires, that'd be fantastic." And would you believe it?
They actually restored it.
In the computer too. Custom built, with special parts, and they managed to get them all in, ordered, and assembled.
Yeah, dude, I was there. Luca emerges from the bathroom. Hey man, you alright? Oh, fine. Fine. I was thinking we deserve some much needed R&R. That's all.
That is not a bad idea. I can go for sabbatical from all this nonsense. And from you too. No offense.
Yeah. Plus, I think we really need to nail down what our MO is. We tried exterminators, plumbers, mercenaries, and private eyes, and it's come to nothing.
Well, we can't just choose a normal job that doesn't involve vampires, Nazis, or giant worms.
I could try.
Great. See, Luca, isn't JJ a trooper? You're a trooper. You know that?
Yeah. See ya. Luca bids farewell and walks out to the breezeway, where he lights a pipe. He's expecting someone to chide him, but he hears nothing. As he blows smoke, he reaches into his pockets and pulls out a brooch. It cuts to the first night they met, and we see Nadja give him a brooch before walking away. Luca stares at the brooch, and quietly taps the contents of his pipes onto the ground as bats screech and flutter towards a full moon. And that is going to do it for our Halloween special, Crimson Dawn. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and spread this video around. You know, this would be a great way to celebrate Halloween. If you can't go out and party or trick or treat, definitely watch this video. It's the next best thing. Next week, the Bushwackers take on Toilet Man. I think it's Toilet Man. Well, we'll see what happens then. And also next Wednesday, Coffee Soup returns, where we examine the Cynic life. What was it like for ancient Greek philosophers back then as they tried to live life in accordance with nature, i.e. living like an animal? And just a few other things. The week before Thanksgiving, we are going to premiere our 5-part special, Emerald Curse, the Bushwackers' adventure into the land of Oz, where they discover that the Wicked Witch of the West is actually alive and kicking. And the week before Christmas in December, we will premiere The Way to Eternity. The Bushwackers are called in to help save the North Pole from a Russian invasion. So please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and again, happy Halloween. Take it easy.